Well, hello and welcome back to the Faith Perspective here on the Glory and Praise Show on Catholic SG Radio. I'm Andriacha, with me, Beatrice de Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the Faith Perspective gives us an opportunity to discuss issues, trends, events in the church and around the world.
Now, many of us may have been educated in the Catholic school, and even if we ourselves weren't, we would almost certainly know of one or two people who have been educated in a Catholic school or educational institution. But what does Catholic education look like today? Has it moved forward and kept up with the times, with technology, science, and computing?
Yeah, actually, a whole lot of questions. And how is Catholic education preparing young men and women to be honest, upright persons who will be leaders of tomorrow of our countries, our societies, our business organizations? Today, please welcome Lawrence Chong, and he's a familiar face.
That's right.
I think you saw us talking when we were in Rome as well. Lawrence, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. Lawrence is a global Catholic strategist and speaker with diverse experience in the transformation of Catholic educational and non-profit institutions in Asia, Europe, and in the Americas. Now, he has spoken at global Catholic conferences such as the Bratislav Hanus Days Festival, or BHD. I had to look that up, actually. Very interesting, in Slovakia. And more recently, to the Federation of Asian Bishops Conference on Dialogue, Peace and Reconciliation, a Pathway for Asia, when the Asian bishops met last year. Thank you so much once again, Lawrence, for joining us, making time to speak to us. Now, I heard...
Good to be back, Andre. See you, Beatrice, yes.
I heard that you are the key speaker for the Catholic Education Conference that's coming up on the 13th of March, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. So tell us about this. And there is a theme. Why that choice of a theme? I'm not going to say what it is. Maybe you can tell us.
I think, first of all, ACCS, right, the Archdiocesan Commission for Catholic Schools, they have been going through this process, right, of really being very upfront about what does it mean, right, for the Catholic schools in Singapore. What does it mean for their mission?
Yeah.
And I think this is just part of that series of moves. If you remember, during COVID, they did the CEC, the Catholic Education Conference, online.
Yes.
And now it's all coming back in person.
Right.
And they've done, I would say, the principals, the laity, they have put a lot of thought into this. And one of the things they wanted to do, and which is why they asked me to say that, look, I think it's really important to take a very forward posture, right?
Yeah.
Catholic schools are not just about having masses
True.
and talking about Catholic identity, right? They wanted something more useful, which is really at the heart of Catholic schools. And so they chose the theme of synergy. And it's based on Romans chapter 8, verse 38, right? And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called to his purpose.
Right.
And actually today, the gospel reading is so relevant,
Apt,
right? If
right.
you look at the entire construct of the Our Father,
Yes.
it tells you that Catholicism, at the heart of the Christian faith, is not about piety. It's about being with God in all things. And that's synergy, right? So if you think about it, and synergy, being mindful that you're called every moment, not just when you're praying, every moment to be in Christ, and then in your work, you're a best manifestation of God's will, right?
And that is
Catholic
holiness,
school-
isn't it?
Exactly. That's holiness in action, right? And Catholic schools, I would say, more than 200% are the epitome of God's call, right? Because Jesus didn't say, go start schools. It was the missionary orders, the founders, who felt called to shape a new world, right? 500
Absolutely.
years ago. And they are here. They've been doing this in Singapore for 200 years, right? So
Yes.
I think there is this, it's a very prophetic theme, I would say, synergy, right? And how do you bring together laity, religious, clergy, to, rethink, right?
Right.
What is the mission of Catholic schools in Singapore today and into the future?
Right.
Yeah.
And synergy is what we're talking about during the theme. Why that particular word, synergy?
I think a lot of the teachers, they felt very alone. And Catholic teachers, I mean, and in many schools, they are really a minority, or what we call the faith minority, right?
Right.
And you really have to be the salt. And
Indeed.
you have to keep going at it, right? And it's not, and it's a midst of all their work, I mean, if you think of it, so the leaders of ACCS felt that, look, it's really important to have something that will not just help them, but inspire them, right, to go in deep, right? So we discussed this thing about, when we are baptized, we are given this calling, right, priest, prophet, and king.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how can we live out that commission, from baptism, and to be a little bit more aware of that? And if you look at the essence of priest, prophet, and king, it gives us something like a faith compass,
Yes.
right? It orientates us, right? I mean, we share, when the priest celebrates the Holy Eucharist, it's not just for us, we are with him. That's why we need to be intentionally, right, in the Mass, right? Then if you talk about, prophetic, the Catholic schools are prophetic. Being a Catholic teacher is about being prophetic. It's not just about giving good education. I think sometimes people, associate Catholic education as good quality education, but it's not really the case. It's actually prophetic education. It's helping you to see yourself so that you can be who you're meant to be, right?
Correct.
What God calls you.
Correct.
Then kingship is about servant leadership. Jesus laid down his life. And all these teachers, they're working so hard.
Yes.
They're trying to be the best teachers and they're trying to give their lives.
I mean, you
for
and
the
I
faith.
we've been blessed to go through Catholic education,
Yes,
and we know so many of our teachers who they seem to have spent like just hours
Yeah.
in school, right? We start in the morning, you still see them there in the evening, and they're always with the kids. They're always looking out for the kids, and we were the ones actually who, in a sense, were the ones who profited in that sense.
Yes, we benefited. I benefited. Like, I was a very naughty boy. Every morning, No, it's true. I would run around with my friends, running around, be late for the classes. We just play, right? And this teacher looked at me one day and he said, and I was like, what? Maybe 2 or 3,
Okay.
Come here, Lawrence. I did that's it again, right? I'm gonna, in those days, right? They whack you and like I like touch, not really a heavy whack, right? But they really like, on the ruler, on your hand, right? And he said, I'm gonna sign you up to be a prefect.
Oh.
I nearly burst out laughing. I said, is it a joke? I'm one of the naughtiest kids, right? And he's gonna, no, you do well. Just like that.
Yeah.
Just an observation, and it set me on the path. I never looked back.
And see, that is, as you said, prophetic as well.
Very prophetic.
Because when the same thing when you, and I've done my fair share of teaching as well, beginning actually in catechism classes, which is actually really tough because you can't really be scolding them or anything like that. So, but there was this particular boy I remember, and I was preparing them. They were in primary 5, and at that time, primary 5, they were allowed to make their confirmation. Sorry, primary 6. They were in primary 6, and so I was preparing this class. And he was the naughtiest guy. And I still remember his name. I'm not going to say it. But if he's listening to this, he'll probably know who he knows himself. But, so I said, look, I'm going to put you in charge and make sure that everybody is in class at the right time after Mass, right? Because that time it was after Mass on Sundays, after Mass. And you have to make sure that everybody brings their notebooks and their pens or pencils, whatever it is. And you know what? He did a great job.
Wow.
He did a great job. And all of them in the class, there were 3 girls and 8 boys. And all of them just followed his instructions and they were ready.
So you prophetically picked
So
that one, right?
Sense,
That's amazing.
And actually he used to be, and because he was so naughty at one time, even members of the youth group ignored him. But this is understanding, or in a sense, seeing the goodness of a person, right?
Yeah.
And then bringing it out, and it's just as you experienced it yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Set me off a whole different,
different path altogether.
Path. Just imagine, right?
If he had treated you differently, you would be a different person today, probably.
I think teachers have a way of seeing the best in you.
Yes.
And sometimes you just can't see that, but they do, Yeah. And so I was wondering also, Lawrence, like, I understand that you are a parent yourself and you have a daughter in a mission school. So what has your experience been like so far? How has school been like for her? Can you share a little bit more with us?
I would say it's really been, a very joyful experience. I mean, she's an IJ. And before that, I made a lot of effort to try to understand, right, the curriculum, the methodology, and the IJ school that my daughter is in is very intentional. about how they're going to give the faith, but not just throw the faith at you.
Right.
They were talking about experience, and a lot of that context in which they were sharing is about experience. And I experienced it myself. I think even the teachers, the non-Catholic teachers, they're very intentional about really what is the holistic development of the child. I mean, there was one session we had with the teachers, and they were just telling us, don't worry, be calm. She's managing on her own. Because we were worried she's not making friends, and said, no, it's just part of growing up. So there was this accompaniment. And I think accompaniment is what parents need today, and also what you would wish for your child, right? Because we live on borrowed time almost, right? We are, because Singapore is just so intense in terms of life, right? And you have this very nurturing experience. And I would say that on 3 levels, which I prayed for and I hope for, they are intentional about the faith. It's a faith experience that's applied, in the entire thing. And there is this accompaniment for integral human development, right? I mean, myself, having been involved in a number of things that involves using the methodology of integral human development, that was really what I was looking out for. I didn't want a school where they just have mass and they have preaching.
That's great. That's good, but not just that, right?
Not just that. That's good.
That's
but
good,
kids, they don't connect with that. Yet.
Sometimes the encounter
but there's
of
a
God
whole
is,
experience where the
elsewhere.
teachers are involved.
That's right.
Where they have a very active, right? So you just know that kids nowadays are extremely different.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
They need more engagement. I mean, even if I send my daughter to catechism class, she's asking questions, so you have to be really comfortable to engage them. And I think the school is really, really comfortable to engage them.
I bet she's asked you some difficult questions.
Wow. One day she said to me, Daddy, I think you just like me to be a Christian, because you want me to be good. But I want to assure you, I can also be good if I'm not a Christian.
Oh,
and
wow.
I had to say to her, I don't want you to be a Christian just to be good. I want you to be a Christian because there'll be moments you fall. Right, and your friends fall, everyone fall, right? We'll go through difficult moments, and faith was the one that
back on
revived me.
something,
Yeah, faith was the one that gave me a bounce,
Yeah.
right, to come back, right? It's a trampoline of sorts, right? It
Correct.
gives you that strength. So I want you to have that in your life. And she thought about it.
Wow.
And then she kept quiet.
Wow.
Yeah, but you have to really be comfortable to engage them, right?
Yeah.
Because they learn very fast.
Yeah.
And they ask a lot of questions, like
Yes.
even Mass, why is the priest doing this? Why is this that? Why do we have to go for this service, that service, right? It's really, I was telling my wife, my goodness, they're starting so young. I was expecting this when they are teenagers.
Sorry, it's gonna be. It's different, right?
Yeah.
And how? She's how old?
She's 8.
My goodness.
Wow.
So it's really not easy, for teachers. Yeah.
For a child to be able to understand and grasp, already morality and spirituality in a certain way as well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's spiritually in tuned, which is why, my wife and I discussed that we decided to invest a lot of time.
Right.
Because the problem is if you don't set her well in the right environment, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I think the mission school helps a lot.
Yeah.
In that sense. So she just comes back and she'll tell me things like, look, the other day they had the Lenten exercise where they did beads, right? And she came on to explain to me that, if I manage to do an act of love, then I remind myself and all
Right.
these things. So these are very concrete things that kids relate to, right? Because it's your hands, your time, Yeah.
I think, and that's what Catholic education, I think, and Catholic schools have done for us. They've gotten the basics right. But I think now also we have to go probably a little bit more than the basics, in a sense, because children are also being engaged differently. They're also being challenged differently, and they want to be able to respond correctly as well. And so I'm just going to put you in a spot a little bit.
Yeah.
Recently, you wrote in the Catholic News
Yeah.
that it's time for Catholic schools to enter into the age of artificial intelligence. Can you share with us why you feel this? Because AI, and even from Rome itself, the Academy of Life, right? They also have been preoccupied with talking about technology and how the Holy Father is saying, technology is good, but it has to be part of the integral development of the human being.
Yeah.
And the human being cannot be put aside, because of, what do you call this now, either intelligence, artificial intelligence, or technology for that matter.
Well, actually, the article is the Catholic education's time has come in an AI age, right?
Right.
If you look at it, for a long time, Catholic education, we have these soft things that a lot of schools can't be bothered, right? Because we talked about human development, we talk about values, all these things that are often taken for granted. And sometimes people ask us, the Catholic schools, why you do such things? Why is it useful? Especially in the Singapore context, right? This is a very hard kind of environment. For a long time since independence, Singapore has been talking about you have to be competent, you have to have the skills, then you get the job, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I was traumatized when I went with my sister to a parent meeting, and they had a flow chart. And the flow chart literally said, and this was, of course, just to clarify, in the 90s. Singapore is so much better now. The flow chart was study and work. That's it.
Ooh.
And I thought, how
The
sad.
schema was just that.
That's that.
Just 2 parts.
Just that. Just study and work. And I thought, that's so sad.
And then die lah.
Die. There's no purpose,
Oh my.
And I was struggling with that construct, right? Because
Yeah.
that whole construct was study and work. There's no purpose. There's no life.
Okay.
When in the mission school...
Although we talk, in the mission school, we talk ora et labora.
Yeah.
So the labor is there,
Yeah.
but there is something more before that.
There's something more, right? So that was a challenge for me, right? Until I met my spiritual movement, the Focolare movement, right? Where the Christian faith is about changing the world, right? That's why Jesus gave us that commission, right? We are not here to just pray and keep to our churches, right? And so I think what is interesting, the reason why I argued that Catholic education time has come, because even the government has recognized that. Minister Chan Chun Sing says that, look, we have to get used to the AI age.
Agreed.
But the Catholic school system globally have already been talking about the onslaught of technology and AI and how it affects education.
Right.
And the common underlying thing is that we are very well prepared. Because we have always argued that it's not about knowledge and skills. It's about values and purpose.
Right.
And nowadays, even in the workplace, I can tell you, my goodness, we are talking about mental well-being, we are talking about purpose-driven life, we are talking about purpose-driven performance.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and it's
But-
all about purpose. It's all about deeper sense of meaning, right? Catholic schools prepare you very well for that world,
Correct.
right? So if you're not spending enough time and you have been focusing on, the hard parts, the computer. I mean, even secular schools are doing a lot about this. But I would say that the strength of Catholic education, because it has this huge global treasury,
Yeah.
and it comes from this 500 over years. I mean, when I did the project with the Ursuline sisters, it was very interesting. They had a book published in the 1960s about girls. And it literally says, if a girl is, something like throwing a tantrum, let her be. Listen to why she's upset. Understand her intent. I was like,
Wow.
you don't associate girls' schools, and you always think that it's all discipline, right? But this is the Ursuline charism. And it's published in New York in the 1960s.
Wow.
And you go like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, it's so advanced pedagogy, right?
Yeah.
And you go, and there's so many of the discovery that I saw when you
Right.
go in depth, right? You can go to the Ignatian spirituality, you can
Yes.
go to the Lasallian.
Correct.
They had all this. Of course, there's still a lot of room, right, to integrate. And that's what the Holy See is trying to do, right? We already have this treasury.
Yeah.
Now we need to be comfortable to engage
Correct.
the AI world. And I would say that in the last 5 years, the church is, that's a good thing about the church globally, right? It's not afraid to talk about these issues. It doesn't hide under it.
Correct.
Choose to engage it. And there's a lot of forums. Like, for example, there's this very interesting project, right, called Grace. Right? It's a partnership between Boston College in the US, University of Notre Dame in Australia, Mary Immaculate College, Limerick in Ireland, right? So they are talking about advancing Catholic education. So through research. And Holy Father said to them, right, and I quote, right, discern innovative ways of uniting research with the best practices so that teachers can serve the whole person in the process of integral human development, end quote. So you see, this is the church. This is what it means to be prophetic, right? You can say, AI, no, right? And no religion has a dedicated forum on artificial intelligence now, except the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are at the forefront of this, and we need to get in front of this, or else we'll be left behind, right?
Correct.
And that's why I say Catholic education is so super well prepared for this.
And it's so true. I mean, it's just like Jesus said, right?
Yeah.
The Sabbath is made for man.
Yeah.
Technology is made for man.
Yeah.
and not the other way around.
No.
And exactly so, the Holy Father's words to us about technology serving mankind, but making sure that every person is developed and that it is for the good of every person.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're advocating that, and if the church, you feel that the church is ready.
We are very.
then-
I mean, if we want to look at it, if we want to go into the content,
Right.
there are a lot of papers, there are experiments being done
Yes.
about how the Catholic schools are being transformed, right?
Right.
To take on this age, because we should not be frightened of it.
Right.
We are very prepared for this new world. We talk about creativity, critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
This is at the heart of Catholic education. We are not hothousing people.
Okay.
We are nurturing gardens. Right. So
I like
that's
the way you
the
said
in
that.
essence in the Catholic schools of the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
I like that.
Now, if you've just joined us on Faith Perspective, we're speaking with Lawrence Chong. Now, Lawrence is a global Catholic strategist and speaker with diverse experience in the transformation of Catholic educational and non-profit institutions in Asia, Europe, and the United States. So, picking up from where you left off, you also mentioned about transformation. So, in your professional role, I understand that you've been working on transformation projects for Catholic non-profit organizations and educational institutions as well outside of Singapore. So what has your experience been like, and what are some of the challenges that you might have faced or these organizations might have faced, and what are the mindsets also of these organizations?
I think over the last 10 years, what has been surprising is Catholics are very critical of Catholics. And Catholics are always saying this is no good, this is not done very well. And the non-Catholics involved in these Catholic institutions, whether they are non-profit education, they are full of admiration for the Catholic Church approach.
Wow.
It's mind-boggling. When we did the Ursuline University in Taiwan, what was interesting, we were asking the Catholic lecturers, what makes this university Catholic? And they all say, we have a beautiful chapel, we have lands, we talk about the beauty of the Catholic Church. Okay, great, but I mean, what about the pedagogy, the approach, we do the usual stuff, we journey with people, we try to listen, those kind of stuff, nothing
Do opening
fancy.
prayer, closing prayer.
Yeah, exactly, right. Then there's this vice president who is a Taoist. We sat down and he's a scholar, right, of culture. And he sat me down and he said, look, at the heart of this university is, because in Ursuline, they have this very often quote thing, right, 个人差异 in Chinese. And it says the uniqueness of the individual matters, right? And he said this is at the heart of this university's ethos. But the issue is, because we are in the Taiwanese university system, we are forced to deny ourselves of fulfilling this mandate, because the university system is very demanding. You have to follow this thing. So we cannot really fulfill this uniqueness of every individual.
Wow.
And I go like, my gosh, the Taoist understands integral human development. And is fighting and understands why, And he shared many personal experiences, little touches about how he saw the sisters try to live out this uniqueness, not trying to force everyone to follow a certain path, be very open to critical thinking. And then we went into a Confucian discussion, what Confucianism is, what Catholicism is. And I go like,
Wow.
do you ever discuss this? I said, you didn't have a chance. You asked me this question, so I'm telling you,
Wow.
And so I see a lot of times the non-Catholic teachers, board members who are involved with this, they come from an environment where they don't have such a treasury.
Yeah.
They don't have such a treasury of integral. We often take it for granted. We often assume we understand integral human development, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, for the Catholic news article, I even asked ChatGPT. Even ChatGPT gives me a better, explanation of Catholic education, right?
Okay, so what did
And
they
so
say?
ChatGPT says, Catholic education is a system of education that's based on the teachings and values of the Roman Catholic Church. Correct.
Okay.
And then it also says this education is characterized by strong emphasis on spiritual and moral formation, as well as a focus on academic excellence. Fantastic. And then he went on to say, Catholic schools aim to provide students with a well-rounded education that integrates faith, reason, and culture. They strive to create a learning environment that's grounded in Catholic tradition, that encourages students to develop their spiritual and moral lives, as well as their intellectual and cultural interests. And then it ends off with this fancy thing, right? Catholic schools often offer a curriculum that's designed to be rigorous and challenging while also promoting critical thinking, creativity, and service to others, right? And then it finishes off with Catholic education places a strong emphasis on social justice, community service, and preparing students to be responsible and active members of society. Voila.
Wow. If AI can recognize.
Yes, I was like blown away. I was like,
Mic drop.
my goodness, But this is why Catholic education has to be treasured. Has to be. We all need to understand this huge gift, that the missionaries built and passed on to us, right? It's not just a building of Catholic teachers and students,
Correct.
doing their thing, right? Yeah. It's actually connected to the entire mission of the entire archdiocese.
Okay, so taking you up on what you've just said also, so what in your view then can the role of Catholic schools be in the future? And not just schools, what can we do, to play a role, even if we are not parents, or now that we are grandparents maybe. But so as Catholics, what's our stake in Catholic education as a whole?
Well, it's interesting. Last year during the Archdiocesan Assembly, right, one of the teachers stood up and said, well, I'm from the Catholic schools. I urge everyone not to forget about us because we are part of the diocese. I think that sometimes is the challenge we have in the diocese. We are very compartmentalized, right? Social mission, all the Catholic charity, that's your pasa, parish, that's our job,
Right.
And then Catholic school, that's your pasa, right? When actually integral human development means it's integral mission. All of the schools belong to us. We belong to the schools. All of the parishes belong to us. The parishes also belong to the schools.
Right.
And very often you see that priests are they are aware of the Catholic schools. They are called to celebrate Mass. They are called to be the SDs. They are involved, right? By and large, but the parishioners, they don't know, right? Unless the Catholic schools come and talk about their experiences, or and sometimes they need to have fundraise, then we are a little bit aware of them.
Right.
But there's no exchange, right?
Yeah.
Then if you look at our Protestant brothers and sisters, they have lesser schools than us.
Right.
I mean, Catholics, we are 7% of the population.
Right. We've got 30 plus schools, right?
And every year, 65,000 students, in the Catholic school system, right? So if you compare that, our Protestant brothers and sisters, they have lesser schools, but they're far more integrated as communities, right? They are far more aware of where these schools are going and developing, right? So I think therein lies something like, do we want this to continue, this division of sorts, right? Do we want to actually support them, pray with them? I mean, some schools are literally next door to parishes.
Yeah.
There's no harm to include, even in your intercession, we pray for the students next door. We pray for the teachers who is struggling.
Yeah.
We don't have this. It's almost like they're there, but they're not there. And it's strange, right? And if you go to the US dioceses, they're very, very integrated, right? Even in Malaysia, I can say this, that it's not easy to run Catholic education in Malaysia because of a whole host of issues, especially on Peninsula, not so much on the east side.
Right.
So they are very intentional about how to try to nurture and continue to ensure the Catholic presence is there.
Well, I mean, okay, let's give credit where it's due as well. Catholic Education Sunday, we now are seeing some of the kids, reading, also being ushers, right, being part of the procession into Mass and all of that. So I think slowly but surely that understanding about being involved or getting the schools involved in the parish, and vice versa, actually. Actually, it should be the parish involved in the school. But, I mean, it's nice to see that already, that it's happening.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, I'm going to ask you, what are you hoping for the takeaway to be for this year's Catholic Education Conference?
I would say that, is the entire Catholic school system is really at a crossroads, right? Do we want to be good administrators of quality education, or do we want to be prophetic? And this actually applies to all, right? It's not just people involved in the Catholic schools, it's also us, right? If one day the Catholic schools disappear, will we cry? Will we miss? And will we say, sayang lah, no, don't have place for quality education? I think that's really a existential question, right? And I think if you look at His Eminence call, right, to make sure that the schools remain Catholic, what does it mean to be Catholic, right? Being Catholic is not just about symbology, right? Being Catholic is about being prophetic, being missionary, right? So I think that we need to come to that level of question in order to help. There are many, many good people, I must say. I met a lot of people who are involved in Catholic education, supporting Catholic education. There are a lot of lay people involved in that process. So I think CEC, which was created by ACCS, is part of that journey, right? To mature, to bring more people into the compact. And Pope Francis has launched this initiative called Global Compact for Education.
Yes.
It's preparing future generation that to make sure that they are more loving, they have a sense of supporting, right, a more integral human development, to have better relationship. I think that's a project that all of us can get involved. It's not necessary, I need to be a teacher, then I get involved, right?
Yeah.
As parents, as grandparents, as uncles and aunties.
Absolutely.
How can we also take some of because there's a lot of great content in Global Compact for education, right? How can we sort of like have more this synergistic discussion, to build on the theme, and to say that how can we advance the mission of God? But for sure, this is really the time for Catholic education for the next decade. While other schools are figuring out, we have something going on, right? So the compass is pointing in the right direction. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow,
Okay.
so thank you so much, Lawrence, for sharing that. Yeah, I think the Catholic Education Conference is one place that these discussions can happen. It's also a time to reflect and give thanks, to pray together as one community. So if you're interested to come down for the Catholic Education Conference, it's happening on 13th of March.
That's right.
You can register online.
Isn't it the first day of the school holidays? It is,
The March
right?
holidays.
So you don't have to rush the kids to school,
That's right.
And it's also
Parents,
the anniversary of Pope Francis' election.
Yes.
Yes, that's the actual day, yeah.
That's right. Wow.
10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That has just gone by so fast.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
So many things happening during the Catholic Education Conference. But today we've been speaking with Lawrence Chong. He is a global Catholic strategist and speaker with diverse experience in the transformation of Catholic educational and non-profit institutions in Asia, Europe, and the United States. He has spoken at global Catholic conferences such as the Bratislav Hanus Days Festival, or BHD in Slovakia, and more recently to the Federation of Asian Bishops Conference on Dialogue, Peace and Reconciliation, which is a pathway for Asia.
Right.
And just a reminder, if you're listening to us on the live stream right now, the Faith Perspective goes out every fortnight on Tuesday mornings at 8:30 a.m. And encore broadcast this today at 8 p.m. and tomorrow, Wednesday at 5 p.m. Also on Thursdays at 2:10 p.m.
And now, we know that you're also very busy. So if you want to catch this chat again at your own time, you can. You can go to our Catholic SG Radio app or Spotify or on Apple iTunes. Also, you can catch this interview a little later on our YouTube channel, our Archdiocese YouTube channel. Watch out for that. And together with Beatrice de Cruz, I'm Andre Achak. Thank you so much for joining us here on Catholic SG Radio. Touching hearts, enlightening minds. Take care.